Well, welcome everybody to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. I am your host, and we are your resource for education, connections, and collaborations to support you on your wellness journey. And I want to start by thanking Annie Bourke of Cosmic Heart Intuitive, Vibe, and White Sands Premier Travel for this sponsored appearance, for it's these sponsored appearances that makes Mindful Mondays possible. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up with dogs. I'm a dog mom. And I've always often wondered, what are they thinking? Or is there something else can you do? Many people that I know always seem to find out or ask themselves that question, how are they feeling or what's wrong? And you wish they could talk. So I was super excited when I met Annie, and she is our guest today, all the way from Brisbane, Australia. She's an international best-selling author and an animal communicator. So if you can't figure out how to do it, I got someone here for you that can help you communicate with your animals, because Annie does not just talk to animals, but she helps bridge the gap between them and their humans, sharing insights and illuminate their emotions and wisdom. So Annie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Laura. I'm happy to be here and share some of the wisdom from the animals.
Yeah, I think that is so wonderful. So can you even tell me when was that moment? How did you first realize that you were able to communicate with animals?
I'd always thought that my animals could understand me, and I actually used to say to them, I wish I could speak cat, because I wanted to know what they were trying to say back to me, and I just didn't get it. And yes, we can read a lot from our animals by their body language and looking into their eyes, different vocalizations, but I really wanted to have a two-way conversation like talking with you now. And one of my little cats sadly passed away after a very short illness. And it made me feel as though I'd missed an opportunity to get to know her on a deeper level, because I didn't know how to communicate with her telepathically. So she's actually the one who inspired me to start this journey. And I've spoken to her since in spirit, and she's got no regrets. She knew it was my life purpose to do this work, because our animals know what our purpose is, and it was her purpose to guide me to doing this. So she completed her mission, and now she can communicate with me on the other side and support me with what I'm doing now. So I looked for an animal communication course, and I found one online, and there was a cat on the home page who looked exactly like my cat. And I thought, this is not a coincidence. This is a sign. This is what I'm meant to be doing. So that would have been nearly 14 years ago. I had two very patient cats living with me at the time who became my teachers, because I had no idea really what I was doing and how animals talk to each other, because it's not just a silent language where they can talk to each other and we can't hear it unless we tune in, but they also can send images, so they can send the letters of a word, or they can send an image. So if they want to tell you love, they could send you the letters LOVE, or they could send you an image of a heart, or they might send you a little video snippet and you just see all these hearts. And I don't understand the thought transference process that they use to get those images and messages in our heads. I just have to trust it works, and I know it does. And I'm sure they'll reveal more to me when I'm ready to be told. So they just uh, let me know more information so that I can process it and then talk about it, and then they'll let me know the next bit. So I know I've learned a lot in 14 years, but I know there's a lot more for me to learn. So it's just a living opportunity. Every conversation I have with an animal, I learn more.
So do you remember like your very first time? I mean, did it freak you out, or were you trying to
Oh,
figure out what was going, or?
no, with my cats, my boy cat, the first thing he said to me was sore left hip, and it was clear as a bell. And I thought, oh, it was a surprise, because he was jumping up on my lap and jumping on the furniture, and no sign of any, muscle or joint problems. Anyway, we had him x-rayed, and he had early arthritic changes, and his left hip was worse than the right.
Wow.
So, yeah, very profound what they can tell you. My girl cat had been waiting for me for some time to get the message that she was here to teach me. And so when I finally worked that out and said, "What do you want to teach me?" and she said, "About time." So, but they were just so good, and but very sneaky as well, because I go through it, what I call a spiritual connection process with the higher realms, and do a grounding process and call the animals guides in as well. And I would have a connection with one of the animals, and then I'd disconnect, and then I'd go through the process again with the second animal. Months after doing this, they said, "We can both hear you." So that listening into each other's conversations, I didn't know, but that was really funny. And it's happened since with clients as well. Like, I've spoken to an animal and then I've gone on to speak to their sibling, and they'll repeat something back to me that we've already spoken about. They know what I've already been speaking to the first animal about. So it's just so phenomenal that they're so gifted with communication. A lot of people are surprised at the extent of their vocabularies. I've had someone say to me, "It's a dog. It knows stop and walk, and that's about it." But we have really profound conversations, and these animals are very gifted with what they know, very intuitive, very intelligent, but you can ask them all sorts of questions. So, about past lives with them, about why they're with you, what their purpose is, what your purpose is, guidance for your future, and then more things about the home. Do they need different things in their diet? Is what can you do to make them happier? There's just so many questions that you can ask and get information from, and that deepens your relationship because they know you've cared enough to ask those questions, and it gives them an opportunity to pass on information to you as well. And so,
Mhm.
even if listeners have never heard about telepathic animal communication before, I challenge you, once you've finished listening to this episode, to go and look at your animal in the eyes and tell them that you love them and see what they do. And you can change your relationship just with having one conversation. When your animal knows that you know they understand what you're saying, it changes everything. And I've had so many people tell me, "I did what you said. I told them I love them. They looked at me differently. They've been a lot more attentive and affectionate." And like, they just love it. They love listening to what we're saying because they understand everything we're saying, and they love us having a running conversation with them. It just, it really fills them with joy hearing what's happening in our world. And I've had one of my girl cats say to me, "I just want to be involved." Like, they don't care what you're doing, or they do, but they just share it with them. That's
Right.
what I really love. Mm.
Yeah, I remember you and I having that conversation because I have a service dog who has been trained to be with you 24/7. So if I leave him with my fiance or someone else, he like has serious separation anxieties. And I remember you telling me, just talk to him like you would your kids. Let him know how long you're going to be gone and when you're going to be back. So I always make it a point to do that. And so it doesn't always seem to be as bad, but he's always still kind of jonesing by the time mom gets home. And my fiance would be always making comments like, "You think I'd killed him while you were gone or something?" But he's just
I will just expand on that just for your listeners. So the point is that some of your animals are with you with a guardian role. And if you walk out the door, they don't know where you're going. They don't know if you're coming back. They don't know when you're coming back. And some of them can feel as though they're failing you, because how can they protect you if they don't know where you are? So that's what I said to Laura. If she can tell her dog where she's going, what she's doing, and when she'll be back, they do understand the concept of time. So if you can say you're going out to buy dog food and dog treats and dog toys and you'll be back in 2 hours, they know exactly what you're doing. They can count down the 2 hours, and that can alleviate a lot of their stress and stop some of their destructive behaviour if that's what they do when they're stressed. So it's just explaining things to them, and then they can calm down. Yes, they will miss you because they want to be with you,
yeah, and,
but
and you better bring home those toys or whatever it was you
yes.
promised too.
Yeah, 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 yeah. What you promise, you need to deliver on, otherwise they're going to be upset. But no, seriously, explaining where you're going and what you're doing really can help.
Yeah. So can you share a memorable experience of when an animal conveyed a powerful message to their human that you experienced with you or with your clients?
Look, there's just so many
Oh,
because,
yeah.
I think probably the most profound messages are when animals in spirit know that it's their destiny to reincarnate. And again, a number of your listeners may not have heard about this yet, but it's something that I've now learnt through personal experience with a couple of my cats and with lots of clients. So, if it's our animal's destiny to come back and have another lifetime with us, when I connect with them in spirit, they can let me know what species, what breed, what colour, what gender, sometimes a specific location where you're going to find them, how old they are, and a time frame of when you might find them. And this has just happened over and over and over. So I've just had a recent experience with a cat in spirit who is going to come back as a cat, but a different breed to last time. She described what she was going to look like. She's going to have long hair, and she described her colours. And she gave me a choice of two names, and she said, I'll be one of these two names. And her mum's just very excitedly contacted me a couple of days ago. She told me which state in America she was going to be at a rescue agency. It's not her home state, but she told me the state. And again, I don't understand how they know in advance where they're going to be, what body they're going to be in, how
Yeah.
they know. And mum's found her, and her name is one of the two names that she gave me. So mum's had to put in the adoption paperwork now. But this is what happens with lots of parents, that they get that opportunity to reunite with their animal's soul again in a different body. And it is weird having them back because sometimes they look exactly the same as they did last time. So they're still keeping called their old name. Sometimes they're completely different. Obviously, if they come back as a completely different species, like a cat coming back as a dog, but there's something about their behaviours that you recognise and you feel it on a soul level. And it's life changing for the human to have their animal back, but also life changing for the animal to come back and reconnect with their humans and their other animal family members. And it's just bizarre because within about 48 hours, all the animals have sorted out who each other is, and everything just settles back down to normal as though they've never left. They look different, they will have a different voice, and they smell different. And animals rely very heavily on scent, so they don't recognise them at the start through scent. So there may be a lot of growling or hissing or carrying on because they don't know who this is, and they have to recognise them on a soul level. And then it's just everything's back to normal again. But it is one of the most transformative processes I've been involved in. Powerfully affects the grief process because, yes, you miss the animal who's passed over, but because you get an aspect of their soul back in another body, you've got them with you again. And that is just such a phenomenal experience. And I know personally what it's like. And yes, I still miss the animals that have passed away, but I know how fortunate I am to have had them show me what happens through that experience of coming back again so that I can help more animals and more people.
Yeah, and see, to me, I would think that that's huge because I've had two growing up and four dogs since then that I've lost, and I always had a focus on the fact that I gave them the best home possible because, like you said, you miss them terribly. But
Yes.
this is a whole different perspective, and I would think it can kind of at least bring people some kind of peace, whether they know or not, or know that they're moving on, or they have a chance of seeing them again, just in a different form.
And there's several different things with what you've said there. We can ask our animals in spirit to visit us energetically, and it's something they can do from the other side once they've gone through a healing process. And I've had lots of people tell me they've seen their animal in a temporary physical body. Again, it makes no logical sense because they don't own a physical body anymore, but somehow they can get a temporary one because I've had people see their animals running up and down the corridor, or they've felt them jumping on the bed or touching them. They've heard them vocalizing, and I've experienced that as well. Or we can ask them to visit in a meditation or a dream, and then we get the chance to actually hold them and feel them, and you can feel them breathing and purring and interacting with you. Again, really surreal experience, but they can help us. And if it's they're not not their destiny to come back then they can help orchestrate to bring another animal to us because they understand we're not replacing them, we're not being disrespectful. They know it's going to help us heal having another animal to love, and they understand that that new animal is going to be fortunate to be a part of our family and have the love that they received as well. So there's
Wow.
lots of ways that they can support us, and they can give us messages from the other side. They can give us guidance, and you're exactly right. It gives people peace. It helps them be at peace with their animals passing, and it can give them hope if they know their animal's coming back again.
Yeah, I would. At least for me, I would say it would. I would think that would make it even. I wouldn't say easier. It's never easy, but maybe you can adjust quicker than what you normally would.
Yep.
So, but can you tell me, how do you interpret the emotions of animals, and with what cues do you look for during
Oh, you can
communication?
hear it in their voices. Like I can hear the grief. Like I've spoken to a horse who had a musculoskeletal problem. So we were trying to work out what was happening with her, and we worked that out. And then she shared that she'd actually been a twin, and it's not very common for twin horses to survive to birth. And her twin actually died in utero. And I don't think anyone knew that she'd been a twin, and she'd been dealing with that grief for a number of years. And I could hear that in her voice. And she just shared that with me. So I could then let her parents know so they could actually arrange some emotional support for her, because there are modalities available now to help our animals that have experienced trauma or other emotional impacts early on in life so that they're not just stuck in them. Some of them are really practical jokers, and you can hear them smiling, and they tell me funny stories, and they actually make me laugh out loud. So I spoke to another horse, and he'd actually run into an electric fence. So he'd actually burnt himself on his chest. So he was in pain. And he said, yeah, that was shocking. Now, he totally understood the pun on shocking. He deliberately said that word. So I thought, well, good on him. He's in pain, but his sense of humour's okay. I spoke with a cat who loved splashing water out of his water bowl, and a lot of them do, and his mum wanted to know why, and he said, and then I said, oh, would you like to tell her anything else? And he said, does she want an existential expose on the physics of displacing a volume of water? Now, I just listened to that and thought, wow, okay, he obviously totally understands the question because, yes, he is displacing the volume of water with the paw. But the way he worded it, it made me wonder whether he'd had a human lifetime before as a science teacher. But it was just interesting, like existential and expose, they're not words that we use commonly. But
No.
what he said totally made sense, but it was just a surprise. So, as I said, every conversation it's a learning opportunity, and I just can't predict what they're going to tell me. They just tell me, and sometimes they do share really personal things like the grief, and I've spoken to several animals that are still grieving for an animal sibling who's passed away, and we can't tell that from the outside what
Right.
they're dealing with on the inside. And for me, I'm in awe that an animal will trust a stranger and tell them things to pass on to their humans, because they don't know me. I just introduce myself and say, hello, I'm Annie. Your parents would like me to have a conversation with you and answer some of their questions. Are you happy to have a chat? I have to get consent because conversations are a free will choice for animals. So I just have to respect what they do and don't want to answer. But every domestic animal I've spoken to has been really happy to have the chance to answer their parents' questions and have the chance to pass on their own messages as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, you just pick up everything. They can also send feelings and emotions. So I can actually tell. So if they're scared about something, if they're anxious, I can actually feel that in my body. So they do let me feel it on an emotional level as well. So there's a number of different ways they can get their messages through, and it's just being open to how they send them.
Wow. It is so incredible. And I know you have more incredible stories to share. And I know we have misconceptions that people have about animals that we're going to cover, and how people can actually learn or start communicating better with their animals. But we do need to take a break from our word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No bozone. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
Hey, we got soul. Oh yeah, we got soul.
So, Annie, can you tell us or share with us a little bit what common misconceptions do people have about the intelligence and the emotional capacity of animals?
Look, I think even just understanding that animals understand everything we say, that's a basic thing. And a lot of people just aren't aware of how sophisticated their vocabularies are. Again, some people may not be aware, but your animal may have had a past life with you, and they may have had past lives previously with you. Some of our animals have had human lifetimes, and they're familiar with the language that was used in the eras that they lived. So they know words that we don't use in common day language now, and that's just a surprise when that comes out. Animals are also very tuned into our vibrational frequency. We all vibrate at a certain frequency, and once we get sick, that vibrational level drops. Often our animals will detect that before we're consciously aware that we're starting to get ill. And people say, my animals just started coming and lying with me and on me, and then I got sick. And so they just know in advance, and they want to help us to heal. They're also very aware of our moods, and I call them walking mood barometers. So if you're sad or upset about something, they will know, and they will instinctively either spend time with you trying to cheer you up, or they'll go and do something really goofy to make you laugh, because they'll know that making you laugh will change your mood, and then you'll feel better. So it's just understanding how intelligent and intuitive they are, and that they understand everything that we say. And then there is a purpose that they're in your life. So some people say, oh, I rescued this animal. And in fact, it can be that the animal is rescuing you behind the scenes, because there's so much that they do behind the scenes that, again, a lot of people aren't aware of. And there's a lot of research that's been done looking at the physiological impacts of having animals. So they can lower our blood pressure, they can reduce our risk of heart attack and stroke, they can help us produce our happy hormones and help decrease our production of stress hormones. They help us stop feeling isolated and lonely. We've got a companion. For some of us, it's our reason to be. We've got to get up in the morning, we've got to feed them, we've got to take them for a walk. We can't just, feel, different emotions about ourselves, because we've got someone else to think about. So it changes our mindfulness and our consciousness about another being. Part of the reason animals are with us is to help evolve our hearts. That's part of our spiritual journey, and animals help us to experience unconditional love. And for people who live on their own, their animal is their only being that they're going to experience love with. And it's so important that they're there, even though we may not be conscious of all those little things they're doing behind the scenes to help us. Even interesting things like the frequency of cat purring. has been scientifically shown to help with bone healing. And when I fractured my shoulder, my cat with the loudest purr just spontaneously came and purred over my shoulder for hours and hours and hours. And I got really good healing very quickly and a lot of range of movement back very quickly,
Wow.
which was a surprise. So, yeah, and I didn't tell her. She just came and instinctively did that. So,
And they do that. Even my other dogs that I had, whenever I was like feeling really not well, if I was sick or had the flu or something, and I just need to stay in bed, it was just me at home. They would not bug me to go out unless they absolutely had to go. Couldn't wait
yep,
anymore. When normally they'd be like, "Hey, can we go out? Hey, can we go out?" But it's like
yep,
they knew. They
yeah,
know
yeah,
when you
yeah,
don't feel good. It's just like they just like stop asking, and they'll lay by the bed or be right there by you.
yep.
So
No, that they just really tune in, and like if um, you're not feeling well and you want to sleep in a bit longer, then they can be gracious with their breakfast time and let you sleep in for a little bit longer. Like mine, like having breakfast at 6 and dinner at 6, but they're extremely flexible, and I'm very, very grateful that they are, depending on what other things I'm doing. So, but they just know it's a partnership with you and their love for you. It doesn't matter what you look like, whether you haven't washed your hair, whether you've got terrible clothes sense, whether they don't particularly like some of your friends. They
no.
don't judge. They just love you. You're their person, and everything is about you.
Oh, they've been good. I know growing up as a kid, when we had a babysitter one time and her boyfriend came over, and my collie had never reacted to anyone, but this one, she growled and that fur stood up. She was not letting him in the house because there was something off about him that she sensed. And it's like, mm-mm. So she kind of like went into full protect mode. It really totally surprised us, but so it's not judging, but I would say they knew something was wrong.
Oh, they pick up the vibes. And yes, I've got clients with cats and dogs that growl when someone comes to the door if they don't like the energy that they're sensing about them. And I know one of my mums now bases her employment on tradespeople, depending on whether her cat approves of them or not, because they're just they can judge whatever they're picking up. It must be some negative vibe, and they just do not want that person in the house with their humans. So they're letting their humans know there is a risk with this person, don't let them in.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
really quite incredible. So, how does your work as an animal medium impact your view on the bond between humans and their pets?
Yeah, so animal mediumship is talking to animals in spirit. And so, what animals have taught me is that once they pass away, although we don't have their physical presence anymore, their soul endures. So, I can still keep talking with them. And having those conversations is really powerful for the humans because they then know that they've got this conduit to still keep connecting with their animal. And it doesn't matter how long ago the animal passed away, we can still connect with them telepathically. So, for people who weren't there to say goodbye to their animal, or they don't have a diagnosis about why their animal suddenly passed away, their animal can give them the answers so then they can have some closure about that. There's also beautiful messages of love. I always get asked, tell my animal how much I love them and how much I'd give to hug them one more time. Our animals feel that separation just as strongly. They want to come back and physically comfort us. So some of the messages that they pass back again are absolutely beautiful. Some of them are so clever, they actually tell me a little code word, which I've discovered now through experience, which means nothing to do with the conversation, but it means something significant for the human. And then they know I'm definitely talking to their animal. And it makes no sense. My first experience of that was with a blind cat in spirit. So I work through photographs. So I don't actually get to meet many of my clients at all. I work with clients all over the world. And so the humans just send me a photograph of their animal and the animal's name and the questions they want me to ask. So I was asking this cat in spirit questions and he was happy to answer them. And then partway through the conversation, he said to me, rumple teaser. Now, I'd never heard that word before. And I thought, what is he saying? And then I thought, is he trying to say Rumpelstiltskin and I just haven't heard it properly? But then that made no sense with what we were talking about. So I thought, I must just be hearing things. So I just ignored it and we kept on with the conversation. And then he said it again very clearly. And I thought, okay, this is something I just need to pass on to his mum. And something made me intuitively think it, and I sent her a message and I said, was he ever called Rumpelteazer? And there was silence for a while, and I thought, oh, she's going to think I'm crazy. And then she messaged back and she said, oh, yes, I'd forgotten all about that. And apparently when she rescued him, he was living with a dog called Rumpel, and he used to get in trouble for teasing the dog, so he got called Rumpelteazer. He couldn't even see the dog because he was blind, but I
Right.
was just so impressed that he sent that word to me. There's no rational explanation for how that word got into my head apart from him telling me. So it let his mum know that I definitely was talking to her cat, and it just made me very conscious then, from now on, if I get a really weird word in a conversation, not to ignore it, but that's going to be the code word that the parent can then explain. And that's happened since. And it's just so bizarre. But again, it just shows how intelligent these animals are. And it makes their messages so much more powerful because their owners know that I'm definitely talking to their animal.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. Because who would come up with a word like that, Rumpelteazer? I mean, that is not that's not something you pull
Apparently
out of
it's in
thin
the
air.
musical Cats, but I hadn't seen that at that stage. So, but yeah, it was just such an interesting word to use, but just a powerful example of how clever they are with their conversations.
Yeah, most definitely. Can you explain the process of telepathic communication? How can someone learn to communicate with their own animals?
Okay, so telepathic communication is what I do, and it's how animals talk to each other, whether they're domestic or wild. So it's a silent language. We can't hear it audibly like we're talking now. You hear it in your head. It is the most bizarre sensation because it's not audible going into your ear, it's actually in your head, as though you're hearing voices in your head. And animals have got all different voices, just like humans do. So I hear all different accents and tones when they're talking to me. There's a few things you need to do to get ready to open your telepathic communication channel. It's something we apparently all do automatically as young children, and then we grow out of it. Somehow we switch it off, but we can reactivate it, and that's what I've done. So for people to do it, they do need to be a believer that animals can communicate and be open to receiving messages from their animals. Otherwise, they're just going to block themselves and they won't achieve anything. And I actually run a mentorship program now where I help people master telepathic communication, and we do exercises with verbal conversations, we do exercises with sending visual messages, and we have conversations sending emotions and feelings. So we're covering all those different ways that animals communicate with each other, and we work with living animals, and we have conversations with animals in spirit as well. But a key thing is just being open to the fact that animals are intelligent and they can communicate, and being open to the fact that you can receive these messages as well. There's a number of things I do to support people during the program to help enhance the quality of communication. But at the end of it, yes, they've all had conversations with their animals and they know they can communicate. And people have now gone on to start their own animal communication businesses, which is very exciting because there's so many animals who want to get messages to their humans.
I was going to say, what inspired you to start your animal communication mentorship program?
Look, to be honest, I resisted it for a long time because I thought there's so many other people out there teaching animal communication, but I had so many people asking me, and how I do it is a bit different to other people. And I actually work with people one-on-one and do live exercise sessions with their animals. The animals don't need to be in the house with them. We just tune in to them energetically, but it's actually with me, they're mentoring them, and we're asking the questions and doing follow-up questions. So it's not just watching a series of videos, it's interactive. And it's just so funny listening to some of the answers that the animals come out with. I get people to work with two animals, and I had one occasion where I was working with a mum and her two dogs, and we do all the questions with one dog, and then we disconnect from that animal, and then we connect with the second animal and repeat it all. And while we were doing the first dog, the second dog started getting vocal, And we thought, oh, what's going on? And apparently his brother dog had used the word that he was going to use in one of his examples. So he had to think of another word, but he was just letting us know he wasn't very happy about it. So again, their personalities come out. And like when we're doing these sessions, we do 6 mentorship sessions. So we might do animal 1 first the first week and then do animal 2 first the next week. But some of them just want to be first all the time and they want to butt in. So it's letting them know boundaries and expectations that they will get the opportunity to answer all the questions, but we just have to rotate round who goes first. But yeah, again, it's just their personalities coming out, which is just beautiful to see.
Yeah, and that's got to be fun. So are the pets or the animals with you sometimes, or is it always in spirit, or just...
We do with living animals, but they don't have to be in the room with the human when we're doing this session. So all of the conversations I don't have the animals with me. And like I've had conversations with animals in the US and the UK. I'm not with them. I'm just tuning into their frequency, and I can have the conversations. And the same with the mentorship. So you might be in your study or office where you are now. Your dog might be outside in the garden, and there might be another dog somewhere that you're using as your second animal. So they don't need to be physically with you, and it's probably better that they're not, so that they're not distracting you, and you can really concentrate on the connecting process and hearing the messages. But they will know afterwards, when you go and look at them afterwards, they'll know that they've answered your questions, and they'll interact with you differently. I have to get their consent to help you with the program because it's something that they probably have never done before, helping a human to learn how to talk to them. But they just love it, knowing the process, but then they know afterwards that you know how to receive their messages. So one of the cats that was in the program loves roast chicken. And so now that he knows Mum can receive his messages when he's hungry, he just sends her images of chickens, and so she knows it's meal time. So
mealtime. Yeah, for him, I know by the look or the timer. He'll look at me, and all I got to do is look at my watch. I'm like, because he's on a schedule. I'm like, okay, yep, got it. Got to go do this. So, but how do you approach the conversations with animals that are in spirit?
The same as with a living animal. I go through my energetic connection process. I introduce myself. I say that they're humans, want me to have a conversation with them on their behalf, and are they happy to talk to me? And to me, it's no different to having a conversation with a living animal or a living human. And it's just, sometimes they're surprised. Sometimes it's been a while since they left, but they just love having that opportunity, and they go, oh, wow, what an honour. Or sometimes they're just so surprised, or they might say, oh, I'd be delighted to do that. They just have to get over the shock of having a human talking to them telepathically, and then the fact that their human wants to ask some questions. But
have you ever had them tell you no?
No.
No?
No. Every domestic animal has been happy. I've had 2 animals at zoos who didn't want to talk with me. And, it's a free will choice. If they don't want to talk, they don't have to. One was an iguana, and he just sat there. I was allowed to take a photo of him, but he just did not want to talk. And so I introduced myself again in case he couldn't understand my accent. And he just continued to ignore me. So I just said, oh, thank you. And I just moved on to another animal. And the second one was a peacock. And the whole experience just freaked him out, and he's going, what's going on? This has never happened before. What's going on? And you could feel the agitation. Like I could hear him talking, but he was just totally surprised with having a human trying to talk to him. So I just apologised for disturbing him and left. So, but apart from that, every animal's been happy, and they know that you're the one who's talking to them, so they can have direct eye contact with you. I was speaking to a koala in a zoo, and he was the whole time head side on to me. And at the end, I just asked him whether he would mind turning his head round so I could take a photo. And his head just slowly turned around and looked at me, and then he gave me a wink. So he knew exactly who was talking to him.
I have to tell you, I can't help but to have images of Dr. Dolittle in my head when you're talking about.
But the same thing, like with wild animals. Like I've been to zoos, and I've been, out to animals in different sanctuaries and things. They know. I went to a zoo in England, and it was actually a very hot day in summer, and all the lions were lying down sleeping, and a whole lot of school kids were there on excursions, and they're all roaring at the lions, wanting them to wake up, and the lions are just ignoring them. And after all the kids had left, I just connected with the male and just said, look, we're from Australia and we'd love to be able to see you if you'd mind sitting up for a minute so we could take a photo. And the next thing, the male sat up and he looked straight at me so I could take the photo. And the lady next to me said, he's looking straight at you. And I said, yes, I know. I asked him to. And she just gave me a weird look. And then he
She
posed
probably
for the
thought you lost your
photos.
mind.
Yeah, he posed for the photos and then he just flopped back down in the shade again. So I was very grateful to get the images. But it's just, they know exactly who's talking to them, and they can have that moment of connection with you.
Yeah. Annie, in your experience, how can understanding animals' thoughts and feelings enhance the human animal relationship?
Oh, it totally changes the depth of your relationship. As I said, even just one conversation, your animal can look at you differently, be more attentive, be more affectionate. It deepens the bond, and you find out so much more about the animal. You can make their life happier. They can support you in more obvious ways. And it's finding out how we can help them, like, are they in an early stage of a disease process? Are there things that we can do? I spoke with one dog whose mum was very intuitive and she thought there was something wrong with him, but she didn't know what. And he said it was only fair to tell her that he was in an early stage of cancer, so sort of precancerous cell changes, but he knew there was something happening at a cell level in his body. He knew that any diagnostic tests at the moment wouldn't show that anything was wrong, but he could feel it in his body, and somehow his mum was picking that up. So it gave her time then to go to a holistic vet and look at, what they needed to do with making sure he was on the best diet possible and all sorts of different things to support him. And he lived a very long, healthy life because of having that early conversation. So it really can make a profound difference for the animals.
Oh, yeah, especially if they can help you take the guesswork out of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
They're very aware of medical knowledge. They're also aware of what they need. So if their diet is deficient in something, I spoke with a horse and she told me that she needed antioxidants, and her mum laughed because she'd actually been giving her antioxidant supplements, but they'd run out 3 weeks before and she hadn't replaced them. The horse could tell the difference with not having them in her diet. So
Wow.
they know whether it's vitamins or minerals or something else that they're not getting, they can tell me what it is. But there's a difference between asking what they like and asking what they need. And if you ask what they need, they go, oh, because, if you say, what do you want, often they'll say more walks, more treats, more
Oh, yeah.
one-on-one time with the human. But if you ask what they need, that's a completely different question.
Kind of like was same with kids. Yeah, you ask what they want, then it's, everything and all the stuff that they probably shouldn't have, and
Yes.
totally different from the needs.
Yes.
So what role do you believe animals play in our spiritual journeys and our personal growth?
Look, my understanding now, particularly with more recent conversations, is that animals do have a deep spiritual purpose for being on the planet and for being with us. My understanding is that they're a soul who's come in an animal body to have an experience here. They have a life mission and soul lessons to learn, just like we do. So they're a soul in an animal body. We're a soul in a human body. We may both have had past lives together, and we may have been animals or humans in our past lives as well. But there is a really deep underlying reason why that animal is with you, and discovering that again changes your relationship with them. So they do come in with additional roles. So I've said, some of them are guardians, some of them are healers, some of them are teachers, and they can do that work with us as well. And some of them are here to support us doing the work that we're here to do, and understanding that means that we can be more open to listening. Like if they're here to teach us, once we can communicate, then they can start teaching. And, my cats have just taught me so much. And I know that it's only the tip of the iceberg and that there's so much more that I need to learn from them. when they're ready to teach me the next stages of what they need to.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's got just got has to be amazing. I would say I love what you do, and the fact that you can communicate and do all that. How can pet owners be more mindful of their animals' needs and emotions in everyday life?
I think even without being able to communicate with them telepathically, you can learn to tune into your animal and just be observant of what's happening. Like, are they showing different behaviours? Are they making different vocalization noises to what they normally do? What's happening that they're, changing in their behaviour? Often they do change their behaviour not to be naughty, but because there's something important they need to tell us. And it's just taking that time to just be with our animal and just see, are there any messages that float into us? Do we notice something different? Are they slightly limping that we haven't noticed before because we haven't really been paying attention to them? So, it's listening, it's watching, and being conscious of what we're feeling and the messages that are coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I've seen some, where all of a sudden, if they feel like they're not getting the attention, they start doing things that they normally wouldn't do, like, maybe wetting on your favorite slippers or something in there. It's kind of like a kid. They get attention, but it's not necessarily the right attention that they want.
And it's interesting because changing in toileting behaviour is one of the most common behavioural change questions I get asked about, and none of the animals I've spoken to have been doing that to be deliberately naughty. They're trying to get a message through to their humans, and they're smart enough to know that if they toilet somewhere differently, we will notice, and they've got our attention. And once we understand what it is that they're trying to tell us, then the behaviour will stop. But
Yeah.
again, it's just part of how intelligent they are that they know we will notice.
Oh yeah, notice, and hopefully you get the right reaction. But
Yep.
Annie, what advice would you give to someone who wants to deepen their connection with their pets but feels unsure about how to start?
Start verbally talking to them every day. Tell them that you love them and that you're grateful that they're with you. They know that you love them, but hearing you saying that verbally, love and gratitude are very high frequency words. Our animals understand the frequency of words, so that will help with changing that relationship as well. And we can't take them for granted. We don't know how long they're going to be with us, and it is really important to let them know that we love them. And it's spending that one-on-one time with them. They love routine, and they love, having time with you. And if you've got more than one animal, then you need to make yourself available to have one-on-one time with all of them. And if you bring a new animal home, it's really important that you still keep doing that one-on-one time with the original animals. Otherwise, they can feel that they've done something to upset you and that you don't love them anymore, and you've had to go and find another animal to love. So again, if you are planning on bringing home another animal or a human or, a new partner, or there's going to be a baby coming into the house, you can let all the animals know beforehand so that they've got time to adjust. Or if you're doing something big like moving house, you can also discuss that with your animals as well, just so that it's not just a shock for them when suddenly they're somewhere different.
Yeah.
But it's having those conversations that's the most important part. Some of them like lots of affection and some of them don't. So it's tuning into, how long can you tickle them for before they've reached their tolerance level
Right.
and they've had enough. So, you can become aware over time of, what they like and don't like. So some of my cats like being groomed and some of them don't. So I just have to respect what their boundaries are.
Yeah, very good point. Annie, we've got a few minutes left. Your website, is that the best place, or is that where I know you hold master classes, some free master classes sometimes for people. Would that be on your website? Is that where people should look for that?
It will be, but it's not there yet. So probably the best thing for people to do, they can send me a message through my website, or you can email me at chintuitive@bigpond.com, and then I can let you know when the next masterclass is. So yes, I run free masterclasses once a month on all sorts of topics to do with animal parents. Yes, I do have a YouTube channel as well. So if you look me up, I've got lots of videos there, particularly about the reincarnation stories. I've got videos about working with me with reincarnation, conversations, mentorship. I've also got a little series called Ask Annie, where people have been asking really fascinating questions. So I've made little videos to answer their questions. So that gives you a good idea of some of the conversations that I've had with animals. I've also published 3 books. And for those of you who are listening, if you're in Australia, you can purchase these directly from me. And for those of you who are not in Australia, you can purchase them online from Amazon. But they're particularly to help people on their spiritual development journey and to help them understand their animals on a deeper level.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say that's definitely on my list to get, because it's, to me, it's just such a fascinating topic, and to be able to connect to that, I want to thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and your experiences and stuff with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. And as I said, for any of you listening, some of these topics may be the first time you've heard about them, and I understand it can be quite overwhelming. But the most important thing to do is just to talk with your animals verbally every day. They will absolutely love that, and that will change your relationship with them. And if you'd like to find out more information about having a conversation or doing the mentorship program with me, please message me through the website or email me, and I'm happy to send you some information about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know about anybody else, but I know a lot of people I have talked to that have been either dog owners, cat owners, or had pets. They always have that burning question of what are they thinking, or what do they need, and they don't need. So I love that we have people around here that can actually get us those answers and maybe get us some peace as well.
Mm-hmm. And I will just say that I talk to all animals, so it's not just cats and dogs. I've spoken with lots of horses. I've had snakes as clients, a cow, birds, all sorts of animals, and I talk to all sorts of animals at zoos. So it doesn't matter what animal you have. I'm happy to have a conversation and answer your questions.
That is amazing. Thank you, Annie, so much for joining us today. I greatly appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Have a wonderful week.